Ronnie, I'm not seeing it on YouTube. Can it go live?
All right, what's up, you heathens and demons, you sinners and saints, you beautiful, blasphemous bastards? Welcome to debate night on the Raging Atheist. If I can speak, it's been a long day. I've been talking a lot. Still getting used to not having teeth on this side of my mouth. Still have a broken gum. So that's not the point. The point is we're here to debate. Does God exist? We have Skyout undefeated, 3,004-0. Going up against a powerhouse in Leophillius. Should be an even match, even though Skyout's undefeated. We're not going to count. We don't count my debates with Skyout because I kicked his ass. But, that being aside, what's up, John Peterson? John is my fellow moderator. What's going on, man?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like knee deep in bullshit right now. After that opening. But yeah, this should be a good debate. I think it's a contest of titans, is what we'll call it. And many in the audience can probably predict the outcome, but that's all I'll say. We're going to have 10-minute openings. They'll each get a 5-minute rebuttal period to address anything in their interlocutor's opening that they would like to, and then there'll be a 45-minute open discussion period where they can go back and forth and ask each other questions and what have you. And then we'll do a Q&A at the end, questions from the audience. Go ahead and tag me with the questions. I'll be screenshotting those along the way. So if you come up with a question before we get to the Q&A, go ahead and post it in chat. I'll find it, and I will screenshot it, and we'll ask all those questions at the end. But welcome to Leo, and welcome to Skyout.
And
it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thanks both of you for being here. Real quick, John. I told the debaters, I told John before this started. I'll inform you, audience. Should we end suddenly? We have some pretty bad storms here in Michigan tonight. Really high winds, tree limbs going everywhere. If my power were to go out in the middle of this debate, John would start up another stream on StreamYard so we can continue this debate and finish this debate and make sure it gets done. Hopefully that doesn't happen and the production is good. But and also, somebody brought up, will there be an after show? Depending on my tired level after this, I might go for an hour or two. I wouldn't be able to do much longer than that, but I'll determine that at the end of the stream and let everybody know.
I just wanted to say, you can plan a pretty picnic, but you can't predict the weather.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, along the lines of if the storms, knocks shit out, knock. will both of you, Skyout and Leophillius, please put your emails in the private chat right now so that I have those if I have to start another stream so I can send you links.
But hopefully that won't happen. Hopefully, Mother Nature will be kind and
I'm just preparing for it
Yeah.
in case it didn't happen.
But all right, so yeah, we can allow our two debaters to introduce themselves, talk about your channel. Channel descriptions or channel links are in the description below. I was good about it this time, like it's a freaking miracle. So we can start with Leo, and then we can go to Skyout.
Yeah, that was always my worst thing when I was doing the Apostate Alliance, is that sometimes I would forget that, and like a week later I'd put it in there, and yeah, it's always better just to put it in right, before, while you're making the goddamn thing. But does God exist is the topic. Skyout's in the affirmative. So, Sky, why don't you introduce yourself first? Go ahead.
Hey, what up? What's up? Thank you for coming out, man. Appreciate that. Thank you, Rage. This is Skyout here. I'm a Christian. We'll be defending Does God Exist tonight. We'll see what my opponent has to say. I got some challenges. We'll see if he can keep up with what I got to say. And that's pretty much it.
That's
not my intro. That was just like my little.
No, right. Yeah, that's all we're doing right now. Leo, if you'd introduce yourself to folks.
Yeah, I'm Leophillius, otherwise known as Leophilus. I have a YouTube channel called Leophilus. No, it's called Leophillius. I focus on science education and science communication with an emphasis in astrophysics, cosmology, and quantum mechanics. I also do a little bit of politics and some other related topics, some philosophical stuff, responses to other Christians and theists on the internet as well. I also have a Twitter, so you can follow me there if you're outs and abouts on the Twitters. Other than that, I'm just looking forward to the discussion tonight.
All right. So I may have already mentioned this. So we're going to have 10-minute openings. We will we'll let Skyout go first since he's in the affirmative. And I will give you a 1-minute warning when it gets to 9 minutes. I'll let you know.
All right. Appreciate that, man. Appreciate that.
And then 5-minute rebuttal period, 45 minutes of open discussion, and just try and be fair to one another during the open discussion, and let people finish their questions and their answers and that. And you guys are two grown adults; you ought to be able to handle it. Me and Doc don't foresee having to mod you guys too much, if at all. And I just want a clean fight. No hitting below the belt. Skyout, I don't want to hear you mentioning the fact of how much Leophillius looks like Don Knotts.
Yeah.
And Leo, I don't want to hear you mentioning Skyout's missing chromosomes. So let's get going. You're going to be first, Skyout, and I will start the timer on your first word.
I appreciate that. So we're going to get started right now. My name is Skyout, and basically maybe demonstrating some things tonight. But first I wanted to talk about my opponent, Leophillius. I've been watching a few videos about him, and basically if he's going to bring up Ethan Siegel and the Lambda CDM model, and this is just empty posturing and then without demonstration. I mean, this is just an empty claim and a subjective claim. And if he can't articulate his position enough and just claim Ethan Siegel and the Lambda CDM model, and the Lambda CDM model is just dark matter, and the Ethan Siegel, I mean, that doesn't disprove the beginning of the universe. And I'm here to talk about the beginning of the universe. And I can quote Ethan Siegel and the Lambda CDM model. I'm not going to sit here for 2 hours listening to the Lambda CDM model. And so unless he demonstrates this claim, I'm going to dismiss it. I mean, I appreciate his opinion. That's great. I mean, if he wants to avoid it, it never looks good, my dude. So he has to demonstrate what he's claiming. And then the other scientists that taught the Big Bang is like Hubble, Hoyle, Ellis, Davis, Roger Penrose, Frank Tilbert. They all affirm that the universe had a beginning. Atheists like pseudosciences like Ethan Siegel and Sean Carroll and Krauss, they might talk about, oh, okay, there was no Big Bang, so they give alternatives such as the steady state universe, the quantum cosmology, the cyclic universe models, and I can demonstrate how all those are already been refuted by the top scientists that teach the Big Bang, such as Hoyle, Ellis, Hubble, Roger Penrose, Tipler. They all affirm that the universe had a beginning, and I must make it clear they present no evidence for the belief like Ethan Siegel and the Lambda CDM model, the atheists, people like Sean Carroll and Krauss, they present no evidence that that there was a universe, eternal universe, a steady state universe, or the cyclic universe models. And I can demonstrate very easily with other scientists that's false. So he's going to have to demonstrate his position. And I do listen to Leophillius' other videotapes. I noticed that what he does, that he likes to create straw mans that other people haven't articulated yet, and he just makes these claims and these assertions. He doesn't completely understand people's positions. He just makes these claims and the assertions. So I was just going to go ahead and dismiss it if he can't demonstrate his position. It's just simply empty posturing. Ethan Siegel in the Lambda CDM model. Let me go ahead and quote Ethan Siegel real quick, because all he really provides is speculation and alternatives to the Big Bang. Ethan Siegel says, what happened prior to inflation, or whether inflation was eternal to the past, is still open to question, but one thing's for certain, in my opinion, the Big Bang is not the beginning of the universe, Ethan Siegel. So these are just speculations and alternatives. Another quote from Ethan Siegel, theorists thinking about these problems start thinking of alternatives to the singularity to the Big Bang. Again, alternatives to the Big Bang, which means these are his opinion, which means that it's clearly not the case. It doesn't disprove the beginning of the universe and that there's a mind that created the universe, the mind of God. That is the Christian position. If he's gonna sit here for 2 hours talking about the Lambda CDM model, I don't want to hear it, because we're not gonna sit here for 2 hours talking about dark matter. You're gonna have to demonstrate your position. I'm not gonna sit here for 2 hours talking about Ethan Siegel. And those are just empty claims and empty posturing. He has to demonstrate his position. Here's a quote from the Lambda CDM model off of Wikipedia. It says, the Big Bang scenario, which is the cosmic inflation, the standard particle in physics, is the only current cosmological model consistent with observed continuing expansion of space. So the Big Bang scenario has already been considered true by other scientists, such as Hubble and Hoyle and Ellis. Any atheist that says that the universe is eternal or always been there is creating alternatives, such as the cyclic universe models, quantum cosmology, quantum mechanics, the steady state universe, the oscillating universe models. These are all been refuted already by Hoyle, Hubble, and Ellis. They all affirm that the universe had a beginning, and the Bible makes it perfectly clear that the universe also had a beginning, and time it had a beginning. And so basically, if Leophillius is he's gonna have to articulate these assertions and these claims, because if he can't demonstrate his position, I can demonstrate my position, no problem. If you just ask me, I'm not gonna dodge any questions. I have pretty much everything I need to complete my epistemological framework. And if you want to talk about epistemology and knowledge and different types of truths, I have no problem doing that. We can talk about whatever epistemology that you hold. And I can demonstrate how God exists. If you want to go to the universe route, that's fine. Let me just talk about the cosmological argument, because the universe exists, so there must be something that caused the universe. The first cause is obviously God. So Thomas Aquinas said that God is the only thing that was not caused by something else, that God created the cause of the existence of the universe. And here's the argument. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe begins to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. That's the cosmological argument. And the data from cosmology shows that the universe had a beginning when space, time, matter, and energy exploded out of the cosmic event known as the Big Bang. The Bible tells us that God spreads out the heavens in an expanding universe, and the invisible parts were made from the invisible in Hebrews 11:3. And the Bible is also supported by modern cosmology. This is why atheists like Leophillius are so anxious to get rid of the beginning of the universe, because it proves the mind of God. He's going to have to demonstrate how nothing came into existence, such as gravity, the laws of physics, the general theory of relativity. He might argue these things are descriptive, but he's going to have to argue how did they come into existence. Same as our sensory apprehensions, the existence of other minds. We don't need an argument for those things. We know that they exist, and that's how I view God. And he's going to have to explain and demonstrate with an internal critique and external critique. I have no problem giving my definition, but I want to hear his first. And then I'll wrap it up real quick. How much time do I have? You guys?
John, you're muted.
I did answer him immediately, but of course I was muted. You have just under 4 minutes.
All right, thank you. Okay, cool. I can finish this whole thing. So basically what I'm roundabout saying is basically the Bible is a revelation from God. He is our supreme ruler. He is sovereign over all creation. We believe God has chosen us in Jesus Christ. So atheists are anxious to get rid of the beginning of the universe. That's fine. And the way I see it is that My view is that there is no concrete physical reality as self-explanatory. Anytime you see intelligibility, you assume intelligence behind it. You see the entrance to history of God himself. This is the rational intelligibility of the universe, the supernatural, existential, transcendent intelligibility and intelligence. Which, what am I talking about? The mind of God that started the universe, which is transcendent. He's intelligent. There's intelligibility. On the atheistic view, those that deny God deny science, and human beings are nothing but advanced primates, a mindless, unguided process by Darwinian evolution by natural selection. So to an atheist, human life is subjective, relative, and meaningless. Just like a cow saying moo, an atheist's life is just like another animal, an advanced primate that is predetermined by their DNA, like a dog. That is the atheist view, that there is no God, no meaning, no purpose. We're here by DNA. We're just like dogs and cats. We have no value. Like I said before, if you deny God, then evolution is true and you're an advanced primate, a mindless, unguided process by Darwinian evolution by natural selection. So whatever my opponent says as an atheist will be relative, subjective, and deterministic, basically like a cow saying moo or a dog barking. Because if God does not exist, then evolution is true and you're a predetermined animal. And according to science, on the atheistic view of science, if you're an atheist, it seems to be on the naturalistic view, everything is ultimately destined to destruction and heat death of the universe. As the universe expands, it grows colder and colder. As its energy is used up, eventually all the stars will burn out, all matter will collapse into dead stars, into black holes. There'll be no life, no heat, no light, only the corpses of dead stars and galaxies expanding into endless darkness. This is the view that Leo believes in and he holds as an atheist. And I do concede my time.
All right. That was a little over 8 minutes. Wow. Skyout coming right out of the gate, taking shots.
Thank you.
And Leo, you get your 10 minutes now, and you're muted, by the way.
So let me know when you want me to go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'll start the timer on your first word.
Oh, okay then. So the question tonight is, does God exist? I think it's important to preface a debate on the question, does God exist, by saying that nobody, regardless of what side they take, is going to be able to provide a proof of this, whether mathematical or logical. The only two realms in which proofs technically exist. So don't expect to get from either myself or from Skyout a proof of anything. That's not the way we should be examining this question. When we examine the question, does God exist, we're thinking something more along the lines of, which direction does the preponderance of evidence point? In which direction does the preponderance of evidence point? Now, I am an atheist, and in this position, because this is a debate, I am taking atheism as a position that God does not exist. I will also be defending from a naturalist position that the natural world is all which exists. But I did want to preface by saying that proofs are not going to be found here. I'm going to be arguing that the preponderance of evidence, that the best model that we can formulate is a naturalistic model, is one that includes atheism. I think a really good place to start with this is just to examine, at least for me, the model I'm defending is naturalism, and I'm going to be using that model as a demonstration that I think that the best answer to the question, does God exist, is no, probably not, is to compare something like naturalism, or broadly atheism, with theism. Now, I'm going to be comparing theism against naturalism. So when we do this, we find that there are certainly stark differences in both what they predict and how they would concord with the reality that we have. The best answer to the question, does God exist, is no, probably not, is to compare something like naturalism, or broadly atheism, with theism. You're unmuted.
Boomer moment.
I don't know what in the fuck happened there. I just went to check on questions in the live chat, and
start his time all over.
No, don't start it all over.
Time all over, but I'm giving the 10, 15 seconds that I just fucked up right now. Yeah, go ahead.
It's not good. Where was I at? Oh yeah, when we compare the model that I'm using, naturalism, with theism, we notice not only that there are stark differences in the things that they predict, but there are stark differences in how they actually comport to the reality that we see. Under theism, we would expect that God would be quite evident. we would expect that there would be a lot of convincing evidence everywhere for God's existence. Under naturalism, we would find the evidence to be dubious and spurious, perhaps anecdotal or testimonial at best. We wouldn't expect to find anything that we could really quantify or verify in any meaningful sense. Under theism, we would expect, the doctrines and the laws of God to be well laid out and universal. We would expect that, that God would have given us would have told these things to really anybody or everybody, rather than picking and choosing which tribes he wants to give his knowledge to, and I guess giving different knowledge to different tribes around the globe. Under naturalism or atheism, you would expect something like a mishmash of a bunch of different ideologies and teachings that God supposedly had based on differences in cultures all across the globe. Under theism, we would expect something like life to be designed. We would expect that when we look at life, it appears to be designed in the same manner that we observe other things that are designed in reality to be designed. Under naturalism, we would expect these things to have just evolved through physical, natural processes. Under theism, we would expect that maybe evil in some sense exists, but certainly not the unnecessary evil or things that are often referred to as natural evils that we see. We would expect that life and the existence of life would be quite just. Under naturalism, we would expect that life doesn't really have any particular privileged frame of reference in reality, that we shouldn't expect life to be favored by anything or the processes of reality. And it seems that when you consider what we should expect given theism and what we should expect given naturalism, and then you look at the way reality is, it certainly seems that the reality we have best comports with naturalism, and I would argue by extension of that, best comports with atheism. But even beyond that, we can look at the general concept of God, and I'm going to be using the classically monotheistic concept of God here, as this is the concept that my opponent would have, and the concept that most, but not all people would defend, and that is the concept of a God that exists metaphysically externally to and independent of the natural world. A supernatural God is what I'm going to be arguing for, or utilizing here. We can examine the properties that this God would supposedly have, especially given the argument that Skyout gave in his opening, the Kalam cosmological argument. This God, this entity, would not be bound by space-time, so it would not exist within the confines of space-time reality, which means that it wouldn't exist in space. And if it doesn't exist in space, then it can't be said to have a location. So while one might say that it exists, they would have to say it exists nowhere, since it doesn't have a location, and location implies where, and where implies location. Akin to that, it doesn't exist in time. So it would make no sense to speak of this thing as existing for any period of time. So we would say that it might exist, but it exists no when, as well as existing nowhere, since it's not present in time as well as not being present in space. And lastly, because the thing is not constructed of mass energy, what does it even mean to call it a thing or an object? What is it? It seems to be that the best you could say is that it is no thing. It isn't mass. It isn't energy. It doesn't have volume. It doesn't take up space naturally, since it doesn't exist in space. What is it? And so what you get is some thing, if we can call it that exists nowhere, exists for no amount of time, and is made of nothing. And at this point, the thing, if we can call it that we're referring to becomes completely non-differentiable from the same concept, but it doesn't actually exist at all. What is the difference between something existing but being supernatural and the same thing but not existing at all? And I think that when you examine these two things, when you examine conceptually what God is said to be, and you examine how reality looks when we examine how it should look given either naturalism or theism or atheism, or a whole bunch of different worldviews that are tangential to discussion, it seems to me that the model that best comports with reality, the model that best comports with what we see, who we are, where we are, what this is an atheistic model, number one, but I would take it a step further and say that it is a naturalistic model that best comports with what we see.
All right. Is that where you're ending it, Leo?
Yes, it is.
All right. Now we're going to step into 5 minute rebuttal periods. Of course, you can use your time for whatever it is you want to say, but technically, we're hoping you'll rebut what your interlocutor just talked about. Skyout, you get to go first, and again, I will start the timer on your first word.
I appreciate that, John. You can go ahead and start the timer. Basically, Leophillius is just he has an empty posture. He has to demonstrate his claim. It's just empty posturing. I mean, I don't have an opinion about his statement. It's just not the issue of what's going on here. It's just a subjective claim. So unless he can demonstrate his position, he's got nothing. I mean, just be genuine with your answers, bro, and be honest up front. That's what I'm asking. If it's a yes, then explain. If it's a no, then explain. But don't sit there and pretend you're not going to answer the questions, my dude, and demonstrate what I'm talking about. A little disingenuous and dishonest, my dude. That's all I'm going to say. But I appreciate your opinion. But again, this is just an assertion. He's going to have to articulate himself. He can't demonstrate his position. It's just simply empty posturing. He has to demonstrate that there's no evidence. I mean, it's just an empty claim and an assertion. When there actually is and literally evidence for the existence of God, such as the beginning of the universe, the fact that we're sinners, we rebel against God, and how cosmology and the Bible agree with each other than any other religious book. And I can demonstrate my position very easily with cosmology and astronomy and with the laws of physics using biblical references and scientific principles. Really easy, and prove the beginning of the universe. That's simple. With scientists that actually talked about Big Bang, Fred Hoyle, Hubble, Ellis, Frank Tipler, all from the universe had a beginning. So what Leophillius is going to have to do, he's going to have to articulate his claim and simply demonstrate his position that the universe literally came from nothing and time came from nothing. All I got to do is ask him where time come from, and he's going to have to give a naturalistic response to that. I mean, if he's going to have to give a naturalistic response to everything, did his computer just pop up into existence? Did his car just pop up into existence through naturalism, through naturalistic means? Of course not. So neither did the beginning of the universe. And again, if he's going to bring up the Ethan Siegel, the Lambda CDM model as a reason to disprove the beginning of the universe, that's just an empty claim. That's not a demonstration. When we have other scientists like Hubble, Hoyle, and Ellis that approve the beginning of the universe, and I can actually quote them. I have quotes right here that talk about the beginning of the universe. In fact, the majority of science and cosmology agree that the Big Bang is the most accepted a framework in science right now. And since he's going to have to demonstrate, just because he says, well, I don't like God, he just made some kind of generalizations and opinions, but he really didn't demonstrate his position literally through scientific means, and he's just basically conjecturing. And I actually have scientists, I can demonstrate my position through the Bible, through scientific astronomy and cosmology, using scientific principles, using biblical references. If you don't like me using the Bible, so what? Because the Bible agrees with cosmology than any other religious book. The Bible is 99% accurate. The manuscripts are accurate than any other religious book on the planet. I can prove that. And basically, we got scientists like Fred Hoyle, Ellis, and Penrose, all from the universe had a beginning. Basically, what Leophillius is doing right now is just like he can't demonstrate his premise. These are all empty assertions and empty claims. And this isn't even the debate. This is an assertion. Unless you can demonstrate this any evidence or documentation, I'm just going to go ahead and dismiss it, because he's trying to account for something without demonstration. And I mean, if you can't answer serious questions and you can't demonstrate your claim, and that's it. I'm just going to dismiss it because he can't demonstrate it. And I mean, I don't know where he's getting this information. I have all my information that I can back up. I can show you all my references. I can show you all the biblical references. If he's going to bring up Ethan Siegel and the Lambda CDM model as a reason to be a naturalist or an atheist, and that's the reason why, that's not a demonstration. That's an empty posturing. And mostly people in the scientific community like William Lane Craig will agree that the Lambda CDM model is just empty posturing, because it basically doesn't talk about the disproving the beginning of the universe. And I have a quote from the Lambda CDM model from Wikipedia. In fact, Milgram, these are some guys that attacked the Lambda CDM model. Milgram, McGow, and Krupa, leading critics attacking the dark matter portions of the theory from Lambda CDM model. They actually use alternatives, which is the modified Newtonian dynamics model theory, which I would probably be more towards that theory than the Lambda CDM model. So please, I definitely don't want to talk about the Lambda CDM model because it's just empty posturing. He's going to have to demonstrate his position and articulate his point of view. And if he can't do that, then he can't. If he can't demonstrate his position, then he can't. That's fine. We can just move on.
My apologies, Skyout. 30 seconds. I forgot to watch. 30 seconds.
Okay, thanks, man. So I'll make it clear real quick. I'll end my time that there is no evidence that there's no evidence for Leophilius's belief. This is all just an assertion. He has to articulate his points of views, and it simply does not exist. He might bring up some pseudosciences like Ethan Siegel, Sean Carroll, and Krauss, but the majority of the community in science knows that the universe had a beginning, such as Hubble, Hoyle, Ellis, Penrose, Tipler, and I can quote them. Thank you.
Okay. Now Leophillius gets his. At any rate, as always, I will start the clock on your first word there, Leo.
Yeah, that was interesting. I would like to remind my opponent of a couple of things. Number one, I don't think the subject of tonight's debate is, did the universe have a beginning? And number two, he says he doesn't want to talk about the lambda CDM model. That's fine. I never brought it up. So in his introduction, he started off by mentioning Ethan Siegel and the lambda CDM model, and that I cite Ethan Siegel, which I do cite him frequently. He's a prominent science educator and science communicator, and has his PhD and is an active researcher in theoretical astrophysics. And given that I am not a professional in the field, I feel that relying on those who are professionals in the field is certainly a safe bet. In terms of the lambda CDM model, this is the concordance model for cosmology. Naturally, there are a few detractors. They don't really have anything substantial to back up their detractions from it. Modified Newtonian dynamics. The problem with that is that it can't explain. You can make some adjustments, change your assumptions a little bit, and you can account for the gravitational dynamics of galaxies, but you can't do it for galactic clusters or superclusters, which is one of the main reasons why most cosmologists aren't fans of modified Newtonian dynamics. Not to mention that we've discovered galaxies that actually do not have the anomaly that we would consider dark matter present in them, which seems to indicate that it is a tangible form of matter that some galaxies have and that some galaxies don't. He did go on to mention pseudoscientists like Sean Carroll and Krauss in his opening statement, which is interesting because Sean Carroll received his PhD in astronomy and astrophysics from Harvard University and is a research professor of theoretical physics at the California Institute of Technology, those being two of the most prestigious institutions on the face of the planet. He is also an award-winning science writer and science communicator, as is Dr. Lawrence Krauss, who received his PhD from an accredited institution. So when he calls these men pseudoscientists, I have no idea what he means. I think it's also worth pointing out that most of the people he cited on those that teach the Big Bang are dead, so they're definitely not teaching it because they're dead. Also, they weren't privy to the knowledge that we have today on the subject. More than that, his opening didn't really seem to be addressing the topic much, but more complaining about his opponent and, trying to anticipate what his opponent is going to say or do rather than providing a positive case for the existence of God. Maybe that just wasn't his intention. Another interesting point that I'd like to bring up is that I would rather turn to the people that I cite: Ethan Siegel, Leonard Susskind, Sean Carroll, Lawrence Krauss, Katie Mack, Roger Penrose, people who are contemporary professionals in the field versus professionals who are dead and have been dead for 20, 30, 40 plus years, who simply do not understand the things that we understand today. He also brought up the Kalam cosmological argument, which is an argument that I'm more than willing to get into. I would just ask, what, as it pertains to the first premise, what do you mean by begins to exist? He said, I'm supposed to explain how the laws of physics come into existence? That makes no sense. The laws of physics are descriptions that humans invented as a means of describing the reality in which we live and how we observe it to consistently operate. It also seemed that my opponent, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but he seemed to give off this impression that he knows more about my position than I do, that this is what I believe and this is what I think and this is what I say, when I don't think that there was maybe two statements that he made out of the at least 24 that would have been even remotely accurate. And he said, I can't really demonstrate my position through scientific means. I can, but I won't use entirely science to demonstrate it because I'm not scientistic. I don't adhere to scientism or logical positivism or empiricism. So I would opt to use philosophical argumentation where I feel it is necessary. And with that, I will yield the remainder of my time. Is this the moment of silence? Is this where we start praying?
What's going on, John? Rage.
This is weird. Oh, there he is. He just muted again. You just muted again, John. You were unmuted, and then there you go.
Jesus Christ! All right, yeah, the boomer. Yeah. So what I said is you stopped it. Before it got to 30 seconds. To be fair, I was going to give you a 30-second warning since I forgot to. All right. Yeah, that was the timer actually going on. So now we're going to go into, and based on some of the comments I'm seeing in the chat, my apologies to some of you folks. We're going to have a 45-minute open discussion portion. This should be very interesting. Again, we will start with Skyout. He can ask Leo any question he wants or make any point that he wants, on the things Leo has said. And then, just both of you let each other respond back and forth. And I'm sure you ought to be able to handle it. So, Skyout, I will start the timer on your first word.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I got a couple things to ask you, Leophillius. Basically, do you take the naturalistic approach that if God does not exist, that we came from Darwinian evolution by natural selection?
So when you say that we came from, are you saying that particular processes gave rise to the diversity that we currently observe in life?
Yeah, it's just a question, my man. You don't have to run away from it.
If I'm trying to be a genuine interlocutor, I'm going to need to understand what you mean so that I answer your question in the most honest manner that I can. Unless you don't want me to do that.
Well, I'm saying, I'm just asking a question. Did human beings, on your view, we came from evolution?
Well, I don't know what you mean when you say come from evolution. I wouldn't say that, no. I would say that human beings are the result of natural evolutionary processes that exist in populations on Earth, yes.
So basically, you admit that on your view of naturalism, you are an advanced primate.
Of course. I mean, regardless of my worldview or yours, that is a fact, yes.
Well, that's not my worldview. I don't believe in that. I believe that God created.
That's fine. It's still true.
So basically, what is the difference between your life and that another animal that's predetermined by their DNA?
I don't know how do you mean?
Like, what is the difference? Like, if you are admitting that you came from evolution, wouldn't you just admitted you're advanced primate? So how is everything you say not the same as like another predetermined animal, like a dog?
I don't understand the nature of your question. Are you asking me like what things can I do that other creatures can't? I don't.
No, I'm saying that as an atheist, what I'm saying is that you don't have an absolute standard in the absence of God.
An absolute standard for what?
For meaning and purpose, for truth. You don't have a foundation for truth. That's what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, I would say I have a foundation for truth.
Well, see that again. When you say you have a foundation for truth, that's your subjective opinion, because you're using your senses and reasoning. How do you know your senses and reasoning is valid?
See, because I would adhere to this. I shouldn't say I adhere to. I tend toward the semantic theory of truth. I don't know. It's hard to talk about theories of truth in terms of like subjective and objective. I mean, they all have a good definition. Each one has a pretty useful definition of what truth is. It's just those definitions tend to have limits in their application, which is why I say that I tend toward the semantic theory of truth, because I do think other things like correspondence or coherence do have a level of utility and applicability.
Oh yeah, your very statement. See, this is the thing. When you say that, your very statements assumes that truth exists, and on
Well,
my
of course
view,
it does.
yeah, therefore God exists. That's
Well,
my
I
point.
don't think so.
Well, how do you
Since,
know that?
like I said, I tend towards semantic theory of truth. So truth is really, without humans, truth wouldn't exist. There would be things that are true, but there wouldn't be an agent there to derive that and call it
I'm
truth.
saying that
In the
truth.
semantic theory of truth is just a property of sentences. It's a linguistic property.
Well, that's
We
what
don't
you're
need
claiming.
God for truth.
Well, that's the claim, but you have to demonstrate that.
Of
What
course.
I'm saying truth corresponds to reality. At least we can agree on that. What I'm saying is that
In the correspondence theory of truth, yes, that would be the case. Not necessarily in other theories.
what I'm saying is that you can't justify truth because you don't have a foundation of truth. You don't have an absolute standard. You don't have a foundation.
Well, you
It's
don't
like,
need one.
well, then you have no justification for anything you're saying. It's
Well,
just
you don't
subjective.
need an absolute standard to have justification. Justification is just that which confers sufficient warrant.
Then basically, I mean, you're going to have to demonstrate your position because basically what I'm trying to tell you is that I'm not trying to prove to you that truth exists. I'm trying to show you that God exists. I'm trying to show you that you're denying that only God exists, that truth does not exist unless you start with God, and evidence doesn't make sense.
I'd need to see the argument for that.
So logic doesn't make sense unless you start with God. So
What's the argument for that?
so the only one, see, this is the problem. I mean, because this is the Christian position, is that you're suppressing the knowledge and truth of God, and I'm not. So he's
What's
given
the
us
argument for that?
that our reasoning and senses is for the revelation for God. So except you're suppressing the knowledge and truth of that. So
Wait,
see,
you're saying that things like human cognition are evidence for God?
no. See, I'm not human cognition, no, but we can definitely talk about knowledge and justified true belief. So what is your epistemology as far as what is your true as far as your foundation for truth?
Like I said, I tend toward the semantic theory of truth, but I wouldn't commit myself to one particular theory of truth.
Okay, so here's the thing. When we talk about justification for knowledge, like there's philosophers that say, what is knowledge, right? So it needs to be justified. It needs to be justified with another piece of knowledge to another or an antecedent prior piece of knowledge, right? So
It depends on what kind of knowledge you're talking about.
So there's circular and regressive and axiomatic. So if you make a knowledge claim, there needs to be a prior piece of knowledge in order to be justified, and that becomes infantism. So if a prior piece of knowledge and then a prior piece of knowledge until it terminates from a false belief. So knowledge is going to be justified through another piece of knowledge. Otherwise, it terminates on a false belief.
I don't think that's true.
So you don't have any certainty or knowledge.
Truth.
That's what I'm saying. Your foundation can terminate on a false belief, and you wouldn't know that the difference between.
I don't know what you mean when you say that.
Okay, you don't know what I mean. But what I'm saying is that
when you say it can terminate, I don't. Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Okay, so but let me clarify what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like epistemology, so there's axiomatic beliefs, right? Like I exist, and you know that you exist. There's different
basic beliefs, yes.
Yeah, there's basic beliefs. So let me just give you my epistemology. Maybe you can, so you can get an example of what I'm saying. So basically, so when I bring about God into the equation, I'm talking about the existence of like other minds, the immediate sensory apprehensions, the existence of the external world, and the causal regularities. Now, you don't have to appeal to any sort of evidence to justify them, like the external world and causation. And that's how I view God. So to say that God does not exist, and you're saying that you don't need God, and you don't need an argument for God, is to say the same thing for your sensory apprehensions or the existence of the external world. These beliefs upon which other beliefs are based, and that's what I'm saying about God, and they're not result to any rational inference.
I don't. That seems like it's an argument that for the concept of a properly basic belief, which is often utilized by Reformed epistemologists, where they try to argue that but their belief in God is properly basic. The problem with that is that properly basic beliefs are generally not, and you were pretty accurate there when you said that they're generally not grounded in some sort of propositional belief. The thing is that God's existence is itself a propositional belief. So the idea that it could be properly basic simply doesn't really follow.
Oh, that's your assertion. That's your claim.
Well, that's the way that most philosophers would look at it, actually.
Yeah, I mean, you have to demonstrate that. I mean, that's the claim because there's
because the constant God exists is a proposition, and that would be contained in the belief that God exists, because a belief is just a doxastic position on a proposition. So that would make it a propositional belief.
These are empty claims and empty assertions.
This isn't a refutation of anything I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm saying they're just empty.
Yeah, can you show me how?
Because there's beliefs that other beliefs that are based upon, just like the belief in God. There's axiomatic self-evident beliefs, just like the existence of minds, the existence of other human beings, the existence of the world, and your sensory apprehensions. Like, do you question the fact that you exist?
No.
Then how is that the same that I can't question the existence of God? Like that's how I view God. I don't question that I exist, and I don't question
because I exist can be apprehended by every eye. God exists cannot. I can't apprehend God exists. I don't apprehend God exists, and I'm sure that there are at least two other people in this room that would agree with me on that. Not that I'm trying to draw them into the discussion, but that just to point out that I think, and this is one of the problems with trying to argue that God is a properly basic belief, is that this isn't something that can be immediately and directly apprehended by everyone. Otherwise, you wouldn't have people questioning it. You don't have people questioning whether they exist, at least not generally people of sound mind. And there are numerous other basic beliefs that people don't question.
See,
if God really did, if the idea that God exists really were a properly basic belief, as you're claiming that it is, then we shouldn't expect to see it being differentiated from them so starkly as it is. We shouldn't see people questioning it like we do. And the idea that, oh, well, they're just rejecting it. Well, then if that's a properly basic belief that people are just willingly going to reject, then why don't we see them rejecting any others, at least to the level that we do this one? It becomes inexplicable.
Well, this is the problem. You're just claiming that's the case when you haven't demonstrated to be the case. You're just claiming that. So I don't know.
Well, I'm giving you an argument.
I know you don't want to
deal with it,
but it's not really an argument. It's just an assertion, unless you can.
Well, I did give you an argument there.
Yeah,
for why people think that,
because you don't have.
So you're just going to dismiss my argument instead of responding to it.
You haven't articulated. You have no basis or foundation for your argument. You have no ultimate.
I don't know what you mean.
For knowledge. Well, I'm saying without God, you're strapped down to a bed with electrodes to your brain, telling you.
I have no idea what that means.
What is your foundation for truth?
What do you mean when you say that? Like, what do I use to determine whether something is true?
I'm saying you have to rely on your reasoning to prove your reasoning. Isn't that viciously circular?
No, that would be virtuously circular.
How do you know that?
Because there's nothing vicious about it.
So see, that's a contradiction in terms. You have to be logical.
No, that's virtuously. Something is virtuously circular if the circularity is such that it isn't fallacious.
See, this is the thing. When you say that you rely on your reasoning for your reasoning, and see, this is the problem with infallible belief and infallible justification. See, because you're relying on your senses for your senses to be valid, and your senses could be.
Yeah, it's inductive. Now, if you want to bring up like Hume's problem of induction, that's great. But again, that's just virtuously circular, not viciously circular.
So you're trying to see. This is the problem. You're trying to account for something without demonstration. I'm trying to ask you. I have no idea what you mean. Demonstrate how you're an atheist and how there's no God.
Well, number one, I specified in my opener that this isn't about like proof that God doesn't exist. That it's about the preponderance of evidence, and I think I laid out a pretty reasoned case, whether anybody agrees or disagrees with it. I think I laid out a pretty reasoned case in my introduction. I directly compared a naturalistic worldview to a theistic worldview against the reality that we observed, and demonstrated that a naturalistic worldview seems to better comport with that. And I also demonstrated that there seems to be an inconsistency in at least the classically theistic notion of God. So I already gave, but instead of you're just asserting I haven't demonstrated that. Those were the arguments. So those were the demonstrations of the claim that God doesn't exist. Instead of saying that the argument isn't an argument, why not contend with the argument and show why it doesn't work?
See, this is the problem. When I explain things to you, you start going off into something else, and
I
you're
have
being
no
lost.
idea what you're talking about.
Exactly. This is what I'm talking about. And so when I talk about the beginning of the universe, and this is my evidence, I just told everyone in the beginning that the beginning of the universe is my evidence for the existence of God in the Bible using scientific principles. And
how? What's the argument for that?
what's the argument that we have?
That the beginning of the universe is evident. I could grant the beginning of the universe. That doesn't mean that God exists. That doesn't follow from that.
Okay, then see, this is the problem. Your foundation for truths of the beginning of the universe is based off observational evidence, when the universe did not come into existence through observational evidence. So if you're saying that the universe,
I don't think the universe came into existence at all. I don't think that's the right way to word it.
So do you believe that the universe is forever, like it's just there?
What do you mean by forever? I would argue the universe exists impliciter, in and of itself, with no further qualification, condition, or justification.
Okay, that's fine, no justification. But did the universe have a beginning?
Yes. I think so. Yes.
So how did the universe, on your view, come into to have a beginning, on your view?
Because there's an absolute, and again, this is in my view, obviously, there is an absolute earliest moment in space-time.
That would be false. So you're talking about the Borg-Guth-Blankum theorem, right?
No.
So are you postulating the steady state universe or a cyclic universe model?
No.
Because these are the models that already been disproven.
I'm postulating something that would be, it's not exactly like this, but it's akin to the Hartle-Hawking no boundary proposal. That there is a moment in space-time that is the earliest moment in space-time. There is nothing prior to that, because there's no such thing as prior to that. It is from this moment that all other moments evolve in space-time. This moment here is the absolute earliest point in space-time. That would be, by all rights, the beginning of the universe, in much the same way that the front door is, by all rights, the beginning of your house. But the front door isn't where your house comes into existence. See, beginning and begins to exist are not the same thing. There's an ontological connotation in the latter that is not present in the former. So I do think that the universe has a beginning, but I do not think that the universe began to exist.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to jump in and let you guys know that was only 15 minutes. There's still 30 minutes left in the open discussion. If at any point you two feel as if you are at an ending point, let me know. My apologies to the audience that there's 30 minutes left.
Okay. So what was before the universe?
I don't know what that means. That's like asking me, what's north of the North Pole? I have no idea how to answer that question, because it means nothing.
Then obviously you can't demonstrate your position, because what was
I don't know what you mean.
Because
but that would comport with my position, because I said that there would be no such thing as a prior to this earliest moment.
Well,
this is the earliest moment. There, if we grant that there is an earliest moment to space-time, then by virtue of that fact, it makes no sense to speak of prior to or before that moment. It's the earliest moment in time.
So, like I said, what was before the universe, and then you said clearly you said some things that were false. Because there was an initial singularity that predicted this model, the singularity and inflation. So there was something before that, the singularity, and which contained
singularities aren't physical objects.
And I didn't say that they were. They contain all the energy in space-time in the universe. So let me go ahead and clarify what I'm talking about. When Borg, Guth, and Vilenkin, they were able to prove that the cosmic expansion cannot be infinite in the past, and that they must have a past space-time boundary. So, and then you see, we don't have the quantum theory of gravity. We can't provide that physical description, what you're talking about, that first split second of the universe.
Of course.
But any sort of quantum physical state, and this is what I'm talking about, has to be characterized in that early universe to be eternal in the past. But it would be unstable, so it would have to actually have an absolute beginning. And even if the universe is like a multiverse, it has to have an absolute beginning, because, well, it logically follows that that there must be a mind before the universe.
I
Otherwise,
don't know how that logically follows from what. Well, first off, there are viable models. I personally don't agree with them, but there are viable, workable models of a universe that is just infinite in both directions entropically. So
yes.
I mean, there are viable models. Number two, I don't know what you mean when you say it logically follows that the universe has a beginning, therefore there's a mind before it.
I'm glad you brought up these alternatives because I have them and I can demonstrate how they're false.
No, I would agree with you. Most of them I don't think work at all.
Okay.
Like, we're in agreement that there is an I would assume anyway that we're in agreement that there is an absolute earliest point in space-time. You would argue that's where God created the universe. I would argue that's just the initial natural state, as Graham Oppie would put it.
Oh, but again, hey, that's just an assertion because you can't demonstrate that position because you're basically saying that nothing.
Well, no, I'm inferring it based off of the knowledge that we have.
Yeah, but again,
I very well could be wrong.
Okay.
If I was wrong, I wouldn't be surprised if I was wrong. There might not be an absolute earliest moment in space time. That's my personal take on the matter.
And from my perspective, from the Christian perspective, the data from cosmology and the Bible are one cohesive built. So like it shows that the universe did have a beginning, and when space, time, and matter and energy expanded from that event as the Big Bang, right? Now the Bible tells us that God spreads out the heavens, an expanding universe, and that the visible parts were made from the invisible in Hebrews 11:3. So these ideas are supported by modern cosmology, and there's a lot of atheists that want to get rid of the beginning of the universe, because it definitely implies a mind, and it gives argument for theists like me, right? So that would be my argument. And another thing too about the Borg-Youth-Vilenkin theorem, there's no way to get rid of cosmic expansion. That's the Borg-Youth-Vilenkin theorem. So our universe is characterized by that cosmic expansion. So it must follow it had a beginning. So
well, the expansion had a beginning.
Yeah, it had a beginning. Exactly, right? The expansion. But this theorem, it eliminates your model, the eternal inflation model. Because like you're saying that there's no God, but there was a naturalistic eternal inflation model. I'm saying that the Borg-Youth-Vilenkin theorem totally eliminates that because it's based on that ever-expanding universe. And even if you're going to say a multiverse, it's based on it eliminates the eternal inflation model. Same thing with
I don't adhere to the eternal inflation model. But by the way, Alan Guth, who's one of the authors of the Borg-Youth-Vilenkin theorem, or I believe it's the Borg-Vilenkin? No, it's Borg-Youth-Vilenkin. His chaotic eternal inflation model does not violate that theorem.
I didn't say it violates.
I can give you the quote of him saying that.
And there's also like the cyclic universe models fail, obviously, because the entropy. I mean, I
think most cosmologists would agree cyclic models are not. You can get them to work, but there's just too many assumptions. They're not favored. They're just not.
Right. Okay. So we do agree on that because I believe they fail because the entropy of the collapsing and expanding universe would render basically the universe thermally dead after a few cycles. So, and there's also like the cosmic egg model. I don't know if you ever heard that. Like the cosmic egg would not existed forever because of quantum mechanics and quantum instabilities would force it to a collapse after a finite amount of time. So there's scientists that know that the universe did have a beginning, but there's the atheist scientists, a whole bunch of them, who believe.
I wouldn't say scientists know that. But one of the things, so you'll often hear the scientists talk about the universe having a beginning, but we don't know what. When we say beginning, what is really meant right now by professionals is, hey, look, there is a point past which we don't have physics. We can't go past this point. The beginning of the universe. Now, I think that there is, as I said, an absolute earliest point in space-time, but we don't know that. We really don't know that because we can't go back to the furthest and the earliest moments in the universe's evolution. So when anybody says that we know that the universe had a beginning, or we know that the universe began to exist, or we know something related to the beginning of the universe, no, we don't, because we don't have a physical model that can describe those earliest moments. Now, if one says, I think it's very plausible that the universe has an absolute beginning based on what we know, sure, I'm willing to grant that.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. At least if you can grant that, that's great. And it makes the existence and possibility for the existence of them. That's all. My argument is that there needs to be a mind in order to create. And that
I'd be curious to know what the argument for that is.
that it logically follows that
How?
unless you can
Walk me through the steps.
Sure. I mean, how do you create something without a mind? I mean,
I don't think the universe was created.
then
So
how
I would reject that notion.
Okay, then that's the assumption and that's your assertion, but you haven't articulated.
I didn't assert that the universe is
You haven't
created.
articulated why that premise is true. These are just, I mean,
Well,
again,
I think it's true mainly because time is tenseless and we don't.
Wait.
Something like a beginning to exist doesn't occur. The whole universe is just a tenselessly existing four-dimensional block.
You just admitted that the universe had a beginning, and then when I asked you that, and then you just admitted that the universe didn't have a beginning. So which one is it?
When did I say that the universe didn't have a beginning?
So you're admitting that it did have a beginning, right?
It has a beginning. Yeah, it did not begin to exist.
It did not begin to exist. No, I'm saying that the universe was once not there and then became there.
Yeah, no, I would reject that.
So that's what I'm talking about. If you can't demonstrate that, it's just an assertion and empty claim.
Nobody's demonstrated that has happened. Why should I believe that it has happened when nobody's
because
shown
they
any
already
evidence for it?
have demonstrated
Who?
that.
When?
Hubble, Hoyle, Davis, Penrose, all scientists.
They haven't shown this.
They affirm that the universe did have a beginning.
When did they develop a theory of quantum gravity and examine the earliest moments of our universe's evolution? I don't think anybody's done that yet because I don't think anybody has a quantum theory of gravity.
So again, you haven't demonstrated. You said you admitted that the universe had a beginning, and then you retracted.
Yeah, it had a beginning. Statement. No, I didn't retract it. I said that the universe has a beginning, but that it doesn't begin to exist. And in fact, earlier I had made the distinction between what I meant when I said beginning and begins to exist, where begins to exist has particular ontological connotations that beginning doesn't. In much the same way that your house begins at the front door, but it doesn't begin to exist at the front door. The whole house is already there. It exists. So it begins at the front door. But its existence doesn't begin at the front door.
So you believe in eternal universe, but not into an eternal God.
Well, if you want to use the word eternal, sure, but that's not what I would say. I would say that the universe is tenseless.
Do you know what the steady state theory is?
Yes.
Okay, you know how that's been refuted by modern cosmologists that the universe.
Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, just letting you know that.
Very well.
All right. So basically, you're just asserting, and this is just empty posturing. If you know about the steady state universe,
what does anything that I have to say have to do with the steady state model?
Because you don't. Oh my God, dude! Oh my God!
Because
dude,
what?
You just admitted that the universe is eternal.
Well, I said if you want to say that the universe is eternal,
okay,
I'm saying that. I wouldn't say that. I would say the universe is tenseless. It makes no sense to speak of how long the universe has existed for or anything like that, because endurance through time is not something that actually happens in the way that we perceive it. The universe, as Carl Sagan once famously said, the universe just is. And that's all. And that's why I said that the best way to put it for my worldview is that the universe exists, physical reality exists impliciter in and of itself without any further qualification, condition, or justification. The universe is there, and that's all we can say.
Yeah, you're dodging like the plague, man. You got nothing but a subjective claim.
I don't know what I have dodged at all.
That's not the issue. You got nothing but a subjective claim. So you don't completely understand the position. You just got a claim and an assertion.
Are you going to contend with anything that I said?
Well, you haven't provided a reasonable argument.
I think I
can't even verify what you're saying. You got nothing. It's empty posturing. Unless you can demonstrate your position, you got nothing.
I don't know. I don't know what you mean. I think I've been pretty explicative with what my position is and what my support for it is.
I mean, these are just all empty assertions, but we can continue. I mean, the evidence for God is obviously there, ladies and gentlemen. Leophillius,
such as, let's see it.
We already see it. You just don't want to recognize it.
Well, when have we already seen it? I haven't seen it.
We already seen it. We already proved to you that the universe had a beginning, and you don't have a foundation.
I don't think that's been proven. I don't think any professional would say that's been proven.
Because
science doesn't prove things. Number one,
you just conceded that the steady state universe, that all science and cosmology do not believe in the eternal universe, and then the other hand, you're going to say,
wait, hold on. You said steady state, and then you said eternal. I don't know. Those aren't the same thing. And secondly, I even said you can say that the universe is eternal, but that's not what I would say. And then I specified two different ways that I would say it, and you've yet to contend with those.
Does the audience know that he's contradicting himself right now? Because
Where have I contradicted myself?
Because at one hand, you're saying the universe had a beginning, and then you're saying, oh, it did not come into existence.
Yeah,
and
I specified the difference between those and even gave an example to paint an intuitive picture of the difference between those.
Yeah, you just asserted that, but
wait. So are you disagreeing with the example that I used? Does a house begin to exist at the front door, as in the rest of the house beyond the front door doesn't actually exist?
That's not the issue. That's just a subjective claim. It's just a subjective analogy.
Well, yeah, but that was the analogy to demonstrate how I view the universe.
It's just empty posturing, bro.
To show the difference between beginning and begins to exist. What would be with that?
Yeah,
then?
I mean, this is when you brought up the Hartle-Hawking model. I mean, there's scientists that have proven that to be completely refuted.
Yeah, I brought that up to say, and I even said I don't adhere to that model, and what I adhere to isn't like that. Well, it's like that, but it's not that. So I just brought that up to sort of draw an analogy between how I view the beginning of the universe and how the beginning of the universe is viewed in the Hartle-Hawking no boundary proposal.
Well, there is actual and literal evidence for the existence of God, such as the beginning of the universe, the fact that we're sinners and rebel against God.
How is that evidence?
And how cosmology and the Bible agree with each other than any other religious book. And we have also scientists that taught the beginning of the universe. And the steady state model is, okay, I won't use the word eternal. The steady state model implies a universe that didn't have a beginning. It's always there.
The steady state model implies an eternal universe, yes.
Eternal universe. Okay, there you go. I didn't want to use the word eternal because you got a little touchy on that.
Yeah, well, my model, I wouldn't say that somebody could say that it's eternal, quote unquote, but I wouldn't use that language. No, I think that's just a wrong language to use.
So basically, what's it boiling down to is that you haven't demonstrated your empty claim that the universe is eternal or forever. When
I don't recall claiming that.
And you contradicted yourself by saying the universe had a beginning, and then when I asked you did it have a beginning, you're like, no, it kind of eternally always been there.
I didn't say that.
Yeah. Did the universe have a beginning?
Yeah, I think it did.
Is the universe eternal?
I don't think so. No, I wouldn't call it eternal. No.
So you believe the universe did have a beginning?
Mm-hmm.
And then, on your view, according to inflation, how did the universe come into existence?
I don't think it came into existence.
That's the problem. That's the assertion.
Yeah, see, I've already explained the difference between what I mean by beginning and begins to exist. You seem to just continue. You just ignore that and then continue to conflate them without explaining to me what your objection would be between the differentiation I made between those two terms.
That's the hiccup in your giddy up.
So I have no idea what that means.
You haven't articulated anything you're saying. It's just an empty claim and empty.
Well, would you like me to do it again?
You can.
I just wanted to jump in and let you guys know that there's just a little less than 15 minutes left.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I can explain it again. So
sure.
Beginning just refers to where something starts. Begins to exist refers to the start of the existence of the object, not of the extent of the object. So you could take, say, a pen and say the pen begins here, but nobody would say that the pen begins to exist here, because even if I go here, the pen still exists. Maybe not at this point, but the pen still exists. So beginning and begins to exist don't mean the same thing, really. Begins to exist has further ontological connotations that simply the word beginning does not. This is at least the fourth time that I've explained this. So when you say I haven't explained it, that's just not true. Maybe you didn't understand the explanation. I'm willing to explicate further, but I definitely gave the explanation.
Okay, then we can just move on from that then if you don't want to answer the question. I don't appeal.
What question?
Don't worry about it. We can just move on. Well, basically, let's move on to the proof of God in a different way. Like, you have your sensory apprehensions of taste, sight, touch, smell, and sound. Do you need an argument or proof for these things?
It depends on how rigorous you want to get.
So, do you need evidence the fact that that other people have minds?
Do I need evidence to know that other people have minds?
Yeah.
It depends on who you ask. I think that's just really nuanced. Maybe. It depends on the context that I'm in.
Okay, this is a basic foundational belief that other minds exist. Which can you at least agree on that?
I believe that other minds exist. Yes.
Okay, so that's a basic foundational belief that other minds exist. And do you need an argument or evidence or any empirical proof that other minds exist?
I mean, if you were debating a solipsist, yeah, you probably might.
Probably, but who was going to do that, right? But
I've already done it.
oh God,
That was the last debate that I had on this channel, actually.
yeah, I feel your pain. But so basically, my point being is that just the same as that I know that other minds exist, and I know that the world exists, and our sensory apprehensions of taste, sight, touch, smell, and sound. That's how I view God. I don't need any evidence or proof.
Already, but you didn't ever address the objections that I gave to this earlier. I think I gave two. The first one was if God's existence, if belief in God is a properly basic belief, as you were arguing, then it becomes inexplicable why this isn't properly basic for a vast majority, hundreds of millions of people across the planet, as every other properly basic belief is. Secondly, why, if you're going to claim that it is a properly basic belief, but it's just being questioned, why is it that this properly basic belief is being questioned so heavily, but none of the other ones are? Can you give me an answer to those two objections?
Sure. You said, what about the ones that are not, and what are the ones that are? And then, so there's something called epistemic warrant, and there's also called epistemic judgment. Like I wouldn't believe in like Thor or Thanos or Spider-Man, right? That wouldn't have any epistemic quality or epistemic judgment. So when you say that, well, actually, we can study other properly basic beliefs, but they have to meet a criterion for rationality. And this is in philosophy of what is rational and reasonable and direct.
Yeah, they have to meet what Alvin Plantinga, when he the person who came up, I don't know if I would say came up with properly basic belief, but at least formalized the idea. He had said, oh, what was it? There was one thing that was a part of it, and then I think warrant was the other one. Oh Jesus! But he had, I think it was two things that were necessary conditions for something being necessary and sufficient conditions for something being a properly basic belief.
I know what it is. It's infallible belief and infallible justification.
Yeah, I think so.
Those are the two things you need to prove a properly basic belief. I'll give you an example of what infallible belief and infallible justification is. It's the reliability of your memory. Like, let's say, in order to prove my memory is reliable, I have to rely on my memory in order to know that it's reliable. So it's circular, right? And in order for me to disprove my memory is reliable, my memory would have to be reliable to disprove my memory is reliable. And you get into the circularity. So that would be an example of infallible belief and infallible justification, where basically you go into fallibilism, where it's without error. So you're getting to this kind of circularity. But basically what I was trying to say, like the existence of other minds and our immediate sensory apprehensions, we know that they exist.
Yeah, I don't think God is, because if it was, why am I not? So, and here's the other problem: either you would have to say that for some reason I'm not immediately apprehending God, or you'd have to say that I'm lying. And I mean, if you're willing to be as uncharitable as to say that I'm just a liar, and numerous people that are friends of mine in the side chat are just liars, or you would have to explain why it's a properly basic belief, but it isn't immediately apprehendable by us. And I believe I already had asked that question, like how is it that because you would mention you would try to compare it to other what would truly be considered properly basic beliefs, and I said, let's like I exist, and I said yes, but that is something that can be directly apprehended by any eye, whereas God exists cannot. So if it is properly basic, why is it not immediately apprehendable by all? Or are you claiming that the people who can apprehend it are just lying about that?
No, the people that can't apprehend it, or I wouldn't say that they're lying about it. The people that can't comprehend it, I think they're confused.
I can't comprehend it.
Well, I'm saying that.
I mean, I used to believe in God, so did I comprehend it then, and then somehow lose some
I can't
form of comprehension? Like what?
Yeah, I can't comment on what you used to believe, but basically, I mean, the Christian worldview, it says that there's no such thing as a person that used to believe. Once you believe, you always believe. So I don't know. That's debatable. But
I'm a doxastic and voluntarist, and I think that's generally the popular view amongst epistemologists. And so we would disagree with that heavily. People don't voluntarily come to believe what they believe, at least not in any direct sense, at minimum.
Right. Okay. So let's get back to what we were talking about here. So I was basically trying to just clearly demonstrate. And you said, why is it not obvious? And then are we just, are we lying or whatever? The Bible says that in philosophy, and you have to use the Bible in philosophy, it says that your sensory apprehensions and your ability to aim at truth, like your cognitive faculties have been corrupted by your ability to understand certain things about God. You've been corrupted. Your certain cognitive faculties.
How do we know that?
Because well, see, it's a spiritual thing because of sin and wickedness in the world.
Yeah, but what if I just reject that? I reject the concept of sin.
That's what I'm talking about. Your rejection of that is the issue what we're talking about. So
because I reject sin, I'm somehow less cognitively functional than people who don't?
You're I'm not saying cognitively functional, the ones that don't. I'm saying
but it seemed that you were insinuating that our cognitive faculty, our cognitive faculties are corrupted if we don't believe in God, essentially.
I said your cognitive faculties aimed at truth are you see what I'm saying? So they're not aimed at truth because they became corrupted because they don't have the proper.
I would say I am aimed at truth.
Because how would you know that? You don't have an absolute standard.
Well, as I've explained to you, you don't need one. I don't think anybody in epistemology would say you need an absolute standard. Maybe there might be some normative standard, and that might vary based on what particular normative system you're using. But I don't think there would be any absolute standard. Just because truth in different theories of truth, there obviously there are numerous similarities, but there are differences between them.
How would you know that it's true? Because I'm saying you can't even start with knowledge, truth, or logic unless you start with God.
For me, if I'm gonna if somebody asks me how do I know that some X is true, it's going to depend on what particular methodologies I choose to employ. Because if we're speaking something that's much more empirical, I would probably use a mix of correspondence and coherence, because when it comes to science, I think that's generally those two theories of truth are used the most heavily. Does this correspond to something in reality, number one? And number two, does it cohere with the rest of the things that we already know are true? And so if you're asking me, how do I know something's true within science? I would say, well, based on its coherence with reality, or rather its correspondence with reality or something in reality, and its coherence with the rest of the relevant verified models that we have. But in other, in morality, this is my personal view on this. In morality, I don't think that moral statements are really truth-apt, but many people do. But you would probably use some people like T-Jump. I think would use correspondence for morality, but I think many others would use a different theory of truth in that respect.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Hey, real quick, there's just 4 minutes and 30 seconds left.
Okay. Okay, 4 minutes. Well, this has been fun, actually, Leophillius. I've actually been enjoying this conversation.
Yeah, it's been all right.
It's been okay. Let's see if we can just wrap this up. 4 minutes. Let's go back to the cognitive faculties aimed at truth, because in epistemology and philosophy, according to properly basic beliefs, your cognitive faculties aimed at truth have been corrupted by the world and by sin. And you're saying, I don't believe in sin.
How does that occur? How did those things corrupt my ability to understand what is true?
Because you don't have the epistemic warrant or epistemic judgment. Your cognitive faculties.
For many things, I would say I do have epistemic warrant.
Again, when you say that as a naturalist, you don't, because you're saying everyone.
I don't have epistemic warrant for there being electromagnetic radiation in the room that I'm in. I would say that
you can say all that. No, you can definitely say all that, but no different from the dog being in there. Because what I'm saying is that
I would say a dog is just as epistemically warranted to the same proposition, even whether it knows it or not.
So you're saying you're no different from a dog now. So
I don't know. No, that's not what I was saying.
But you said you were both in the room. I don't know. But what I'm saying is that when I said your cognitive faculties are aimed at truth have been corrupted, and you're saying, well, no, they haven't. And I say, and how would you know that? Because as a naturalist, you're saying everything came from Darwinian evolution by natural selection.
Oh, so this is just Plantinga's evolutionary argument against naturalism. That's what
So
this is.
basically, everything you say is a chemical reaction. Like you don't have any free will. You're a predetermined animal.
The
Because
EEAN is not very strong, my friend. That's what I'm going to tell you right now.
I mean, you just admitted if there's no God, then we came from evolution by natural selection. So when I ask you about your cognitive functions, your cognitive abilities to aim at truth, they're just relative. They're just deterministic, like a dog, like
I
a
don't
dog
know.
barking.
So then why do humans and dogs actually have relatively similar cognitive faculties?
That-
Why is it that most mammals, pretty much all mammals, have relative? Obviously, there's varying degrees to it, but what the faculties do or can do, well, they do it to varying degrees, are relatively the same. This seems to indicate that this would be the objection to the EEA, and they have Plantinga's evolutionary argument. EAAN, I think is what it is. Yeah. The evolutionary argument against naturalism is that any organism that experiences and understands the world as it is would better survive in its environments. So we would expect that essentially organisms with stronger and more accurate cognitive faculties will be better apt for survival in their environments, and thus those particular traits will extend through the population over and above other ones. And so we would expect that successful organisms would have reliable cognitive faculties.
So how can you trust the things that you say if they're just a chemical reaction from evolution?
For the reason that I explained, because those chemical reactions give
but they're
rise to
subjective.
reliability. What do you mean by subjective?
They're subjective to your understanding as a human being, because you're saying as a human being you're nothing but an advanced primate. So they're just relative and subjective. It wouldn't matter if you understood
I still
it.
don't know what that means.
You don't know what that means.
No,
I'm
like
saying,
when you say like what is relative?
Relative, it's meaningless. It's like a
relative
branch.
Doesn't mean meaningless.
A
branch falling off a tree is relative. If I say the word monster is a relative term. Anyone can have a meaning for the word monster. So like relative means like there's no absolute standard.
I mean, I know what it means. I'm curious how you're using it here.
I'm using it here in a sense.
What are you saying? Our cognitive faculties are relative? Because I don't know if I would agree with that.
Yes,
I don't think I would agree with that.
Your cognitive faculties are relative, like a dog.
Relative to what?
They're relative to the things that you observe.
I don't think so. I think that humans tend to observe.
How can you
the
say
same
you don't
things.
think so when you said you admit you're advanced primate? That means
why do so many humans agree on so much of the same stuff if our cognitive faculties are unreliable? Why do we all come to the same conclusions on the same
data? I didn't
data?
say that you can't do that.
Well, then that would indicate that our cognitive faculties are not subjective, that all
right,
humans have the same
You can answer his question, then we're done. Answer what he just asked you, and then we're done.
Okay. I think I concede my time. I think that's all.
All right. Good job, guys. That was quite interesting. So we're going to do a Q&A now. I screenshot everything, and there's some very interesting questions in here. Most of them are for Skyout, you might imagine. And then I have to.
By the way, John, Nick Sutter says hi in the chat.
Oh, I see that.
Did we get
thanks.
more? I only caught one, John. So I'm glad you was looking better than me. I was typing. I just
yeah.
I missed
Well,
it.
but here's the thing: is I have to close out the stream on my phone to access my screenshots. So you're responsible for catching any questions that come in after this point.
All right, sounds good.
All right, and then let me get my screenshots up here. So tell us about what kind of stuff is on your channel, Leo, while I find my screenshots.
Just a lot of science education and science communication. I do some other stuff talking about certain topics, getting a little bit into philosophy and counter apologetics, I guess is what I'm trying to say. A lot of counter apologetics. The last video that I made, I'm probably this week, I think I'm going to be working on a response video to one that a video that Inspiring Philosophy Michael Jones made. Yeah, my last video was a response to William Lane Craig's indirect response to a comment I had made on a Facebook post to one of his readers.
And Skyout, tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
your channel.
Wait, hold up. Hey, Leophillius, what did William Lane Craig tell you? By the way,
I don't know what you mean.
William Lane Craig, right? Because
Yeah.
what did he tell you? What did he tell you? He said that you were empty posturing, right?
Of course you did. I mean, I
Okay.
wasn't, but
I just
that's
want
what
that
he
on
said.
record. I just want that on record. Okay.
Well, yeah, because he didn't have a reasoned response. He didn't actually even provide much of a response to anything that I said, or
Well,
show
you
how
know.
I misrepresented anything. And I explained that in my video, so I'm not going to talk about it. If anybody wants to see, they can go.
Skyout
They can go to my
saved his
channel.
knockout punch for. I think that might be like the first relevant thing I've heard all night. Like, who cares what William Lane Craig said? Skyout. John, you've got the questions.
Yeah, I got the questions coming here, and the first question, again, most of them are for Skyout.
Damn.
It seemed to be the focus of everyone's attention during this,
Right.
and maybe not necessarily in a good way, but
No, maybe not.
well, the debate's over, so now I don't have to be impartial. But apricot sloth, apricot, and I don't know if this is something you need to respond to, but a lot of people were mentioning this in the chat. But apricot sloth asks, so does Skyout propose God? This was during your opening. He posted this. So does Skyout propose God exists, or is his position that Leo is bad? That's kind of how your opening kind of came out.
I have no opinion on that statement, actually.
Well, it wasn't a statement; it was a question.
It was okay.
But, what's that now?
Go ahead.
That's more of a comment. And then again, another question that was, in jest, I imagine. It's from Sandy. He says, question, how many insults can Skyout press into a 10-minute time span? Anyone been counting?
I didn't curse or yell or get angry. I don't think I insulted him, no.
Cursing and yelling do not necessarily entail insults.
Or
insulting does not necessarily entail cursing and
maybe not. I think maybe that to me it kind of does. If a person starts yelling and cursing, it kind of means I don't know.
Okay. And then So this again is from Sandy. So Skyout isn't even going to try to prove God exists, because all I've heard is how everything Leo ever produced is, in his less than humble opinion, false. Am I wrong? Yeah, I mean it's kind of I have a question or two of my own that'll address that later. But yeah, it seemed like you didn't so much address the topic of the debate in your opening. You more or less were trying to preemptively knock down any arguments that you presumed Leo was going to make, and you kind of were a little harsh on him, insulting.
Oh, I do apologize about that.
Hey,
it's not the worst, believe me.
Yeah. Well, no, and it was still, still a good discussion, and you two kept your cool, and. But at any rate, Icarus asks, did God just pop into existence?
No, he's eternal. He's forever. He doesn't have a beginning or an end.
Okay. Next question is from Brian Stevens. A question that comes off more like a comment. We've already addressed this, but Brian Stevens asks, he got here, I think, a little late. And he asks, has Skyout argued for the Christian God yet, or just a vague prime mover God? Yeah, a lot of people in the chat were saying that you were coming off like a deist, that you weren't really sounding like a Christian.
No, that's just
I don't think he had to, though. This wasn't a debate about the Christian God. This was just a debate about God.
Yeah, that's true.
That is true. Yeah, it wasn't. I was just demonstrating a creator. If you want me to demonstrate the theological position that it's the Christian God, and I can do that too. Maybe another time.
I hate it. I hate it when I just have to comment, Scott. I hate.
Be right back. I got to go flip my.
I absolutely hate it when Christians run away from their God.
I did not. We could do it again. I got
Well,
scripture. I got science.
Well, and Sky, I must say that was very convincing the way you played it off. That you didn't realize you were arguing for your own God. That was your plan to argue for a deistic God.
I
So,
no, never said that. I just said we're going to talk about because I can't tell you about Jesus or the Father or the Holy Spirit. You're just going to dismiss that. So I'm just going to let's just get to the Creator, and then I can tell you about the Father. That's my point.
okay. This was another question from Icarus that is more of a comment, I think. I mean, but if you want to respond to it, go ahead. Were there any arguments for God or just attacks on Leo, evolution, and science in general?
The existence of God, sure. I definitely said scientific principles of astronomy, cosmology, using biblical references. The Bible's 99% accurate, the manuscript evidence than any other religion. That's why it's not Allah or Buddha.
You're right. I mean, but just real quick, that's not an argument for the existence of God. That's a list of things. You just basically gave us a list of things. You didn't make an
You
argument.
gotta. Well, the Bible says that the universe is expanding, and so does science, and they're cohesive and they're consistent. And I can prove that the universe had a beginning, and the Bible says that the universe had a beginning, and the Bible's consistent with the science and cosmology in the beginning of the universe. So I can prove that scientifically. I mean, it wouldn't be an issue. I can prove that epistemically with epistemology, and I can prove that with science and in history. So with antiquity. And just simply just use that, and I can prove the existence of God. It's just the people that don't want to accept it have their cognitive faculties have been corrupted by sin and wickedness, and then they don't have epistemic warrant for their objection, basically.
Okay, all right. Is this the point where we pass the collection plate around now? Oh, I'm sorry. And then this was just a comment that I found humorous. Remember, Sammy Jenkins said, "It's like trying to defeat someone in a debate whose tactic is to vomit on your shoes. Of course they win." And I'll let you guys decide who that comment was addressed to.
You're muted, Leo.
Can you repeat it one more time? I'm sorry, John.
Remember, Sammy Jenkins said, "It's like trying to defeat someone in a debate whose tactic is to vomit on your shoes. Of course they win." And then I said, and I'll let you guys work out who that comment was directed towards.
I have no clue.
It's a
I'm
relative.
not gonna try.
It's a relative. I don't know what's going on. It's a relative comment.
All right, I have a screenshot here. Oh, this question, I've been waiting for this one, and it's not really on the topic of the debate, but Korag Nightwolf wants to know, Skyout, is your avatar supposed to be some racist innuendo?
What? No, quite the opposite. It's supposed to tell you that I'm not racist, that I'm all colors. How would you get that? I don't get that.
Well, they're basing it on a what the fuck is it called? Whatever. They're basing it on your past behavior, I guess.
Oh yeah. I mean, people clown. I was just clowning and playing around. This is going to be my avatar from now on.
Well, I mean, it could be. I mean, all right. So for me personally, because I commented on it earlier, I was like, it could be racist knowing Skyout, and I was referring to your old skit with the slave and all of that atrocious shit you used to do. But like looking at the avatar, it could be like a silent scream, all lives matter. And I mean, you could say political statement. I could say racist statement. Tomato.
Yeah.
I don't see it as racist. I mean, I'm the whole point was like you shouldn't be racist. That's
Can
why.
I ask you a quick question,
Yeah.
Skyout? And I asked this I'm honestly genuinely curious when I ask this. Are you black or white or mixed or I mean what is your ethnicity?
Oh, you've never seen him on camera?
If you don't mind sharing, you don't have to share if you don't want.
No,
to.
I can. I'm white and Italian.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
You're what?
Do I sound black?
No, I just didn't know.
Okay.
Right, and what I was trying to think of a minute ago was like, I guess Cord Nightwolf, to explain to you further, Skyout, is he's basically basing that on an inductive argument, like I said, based on your past actions. He sees that avatar and wonders if it is some joke on your part.
I'm not too sure.
I'm not focusing on it. I made one comment on it. Okay, I was about to anyway. And here's a comment on when I boomered out and didn't unmute myself and was talking to them about at the end of the clock. And remember, Sammy Jenkins says, "John, you had one fucking job," and he's right.
There was a question by Titan Uranus.
He's got, he's got it.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah. And he can ask the other question. And then Lisa for Truth had asked, but I believe she's gone now. This is at Skyout. Who said the universe began to exist? Can you prove that?
I think I already have, and they would have to disprove the fact that the universe is. They would have to prove the fact that the universe is eternal, which is the steady state universe model, which has been disproven by modern science today. So the universe is definitely not eternal. It did have a beginning, and the Bible describes the beginning of the universe exactly how science and cosmology, the general theory of relativity, describes the mechanics of how those came into existence during the time of the inflation. So I would definitely say at the beginning of the universe is definitely evidence for the existence of a mind and the existence of God.
My apologies, Leo. Like everybody's asking Scott questions. Kevin Crady wants Skyout to explain to us what a predetermined animal is, and I had wrote that in a question that I wanted to ask myself, but I see that he had asked it.
A predetermined animal. That's basically, well, in my point of view, when atheists say they deny God, then people like Richard Dawkins, they say, well, there's no God, there's no meaning, there's no purpose. That's basically where I got that from. We dance to the tune to our DNA. That's where I got that from, Richard Dawkins. So he even says that we're primates. I got that from him, and he's the atheist. So
well, no, I think his question is more about the predetermined. Like, why would you say an animal is predetermined?
Well, because they evolved. They're predetermined animals in a sense that
predetermined by who?
By evolution.
I think you mean to just say determined, not predetermined.
He said predetermined, right?
Well, no, that's what you said several times during the course of the debate, was that you talked about predetermined animals, and I'm not sure what that is. Like,
neither am I, and neither was the questioner.
Well, predetermined just means that no different than like an animal that's predetermined. It's relative. Like everything is relative and deterministic.
Well, wait a minute. No, it doesn't. What? First of all,
you can look it up, bro.
You use the word predetermined in your definition of predetermined, and you talked about animals. But anyway, all right, whatever.
All right.
Like I said, my apologies. I'm not being what do you call partial here.
It's all good. It's all good, my man. It's all good.
Let's see here.
Don't ever change, John. Don't you ever fucking change.
Orge 343, which go check his channel out. He just put a pretty funny video up here not too long ago. You got to see. And he asks, is Skyout capable of talking, or does he just follow a list of YouTube YEC bullet points?
What? I don't even know. I can definitely capable. We can definitely have a conversation again. We could do this again. We can go ahead and talk about evolution, or maybe epistemology or philosophy, the cognitive faculties aimed at truth and foundation beliefs. We can definitely do it again.
You know,
Oh well, after I get done with these questions from the audience, and then Knock does the questions he has from the audience, I have a few questions for you, and we're going to talk a little
yeah.
bit about.
And now that the audience can actually hear me because I had this other mute button over here pushed. Yes, Titan, I do have your question. I will make sure it gets read.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anything
you
that
guys
put up-
have heard me. I don't know for how long, but the audience hasn't because I didn't realize that other mute button wasn't. Yeah, you guys heard me. They didn't. All right, so go
Well,
ahead.
no, we couldn't hear you either until you just said it again. Now,
Oh, really?
yeah. So I don't know
That's weird. All right.
why that is. And then and then just remember, people. I just thought of something that was pretty funny when I didn't realize I was muted, and I was trying to. Leo's like, "Yeah, this is getting awkward," But just remember, I'm not the only one that does that. Ronnie's not even a boomer, and he forgets to turn his fucking mute button off.
I am a Zoomer though, so I'm getting close.
A Zoomer? No, you're not. You're Gen X.
Let me think. Yeah,
Boomer, Gen X, Millennial, Zoomer.
I said Zoomer. Yeah. I don't know what I was thinking.
You're Gen X. Yeah. You're Gen X.
Well, I'm a cusp. I'm actually a cusp. Gen X. What comes after Gen X?
Millennial.
Millennial. Yeah, I'm a cusp.
What year were you born?
77.
Yeah, no, you are firmly Gen X.
Maybe.
Millennial starts 1986 to 1997 or 1998, I think is what it is.
Yeah, you're probably right.
All right, so another question from Kevin Crady. And oh no, wait a minute. I'm sorry. That it's from Orgay343. It's a question. You can comment on it, Skyout, but it's more like a question that's making a comment on your debate. Tactics.
Okay.
Orgay343 says, "Does God exist?" Question mark.
Yes.
No. Does God exist? Question mark is supposed to be the debate, right?
Well, yeah. What I was proving that was the beginning of the universe, the creator, a mind before the universe. That's what I wanted to show you guys. That's what I proved tonight, that the universe did have a beginning, that science proved the beginning of the universe, and that the Bible makes basically these perfect examples of how the universe came into existence, and they're one cohesive built. And it makes a perfect argument. And I should have quoted more verses, but I did quote Hebrews 11:3 and a few verses here and there. But I can definitely quote more verses about the Bible maybe next time.
So you disagree with one of Leo's opening statements that neither of you were going to be able to prove anything tonight. So you say you did prove the existence of God tonight.
Well, my argument was that God is a properly basic beliefs, no different than other people has minds, our sensory apprehensions.
Yeah. We can replay all this later.
Okay, but my point was that I don't need an argument or justification that I know that other minds exist. I don't need an argument or justification that I know exists. That's how I view God. That was the point I was trying to get across. I'm not going to bring up Jesus or the Holy Spirit or the Father because everyone will just dismiss that. Everyone's heard about Christianity over and over. So I just wanted, that's why I didn't go to that approach. I could have went to the just strictly biblical approach, but people are going to be like, oh, the same old precept stuff. That's what I get when I talk about the Bible. They're, oh, he's just precept.
So wait a minute. You think that you stayed away from the precept stuff tonight?
I didn't. I could have made it worse. Let's just put it to you that way. I could have made it a lot worse.
Look, I got to tell you, and this is just my humble opinion, I don't think you could have made it any worse. But at any rate, Chris Myers asked Rage, that Rage, next weekend, can I have my 4-year-old on to debate Skyout? And so, like, you already have another challenger from this debate. So that's one good.
I did respond that maybe
I'll destroy that 4-year-old.
Since Skyout clearly won this debate. He's 3,005-0. That maybe next week he might.
What are you talking about? G-Man won this debate.
Yeah, G-Man won this debate. So yeah, definitely. I even the playing fields. I kid with Skyout. I kid. Everybody's hoping you show up for the after show, Skyout, because I did decide to do an after show. You're more than welcome to come if you'd like.
Okay, for sure. I'm gonna get some dinner though.
I'm gonna take an herb break. So.
Yeah, you're absolutely welcome to come, Skyout, but Yeah, enter at your own risk.
Well, no,
But
I think it's going to be fun, and
yeah,
I do ask that anybody that comes in be civil, unless Otangelo's a dick. If Otangelo comes in and he's a dick, I give you permission.
I think I'm gonna talk in my Otangelo voice all during the show. And then Korg Nightwolf wants to know, I'm presuming, so that you can so that he can get some himself. But he asked Skyout, who gave you the drugs, Skyout?
I got it from him. No.
Well, that's an interesting question based on the last time you were on the program. While Knock was doing the opening for the stream, it sounded like you did a big ass line of coke.
You said that before. I don't know why you keep saying that. I don't have any.
Everybody else that heard it thought the same thing. Like,
no one. I don't recall anyone saying that.
Yeah, you could have just had a bad cold that day. Clearing the
Leo's
sinuses.
doing something over there. He's doing something over there.
I mean, I'll play devil's advocate. You could have been clearing the sinuses from yesterday's cocaine.
You know what I'm saying? Hey, you know what I'm saying? That's just how we got to do it.
Audience, we kid with Skyout. We've got history with Skyout. We have love. There's love there, right, Skyout?
We got history. We got love. You know what I'm saying? I remember the first debate we had on MDD where I clowned you. It was fun. You know what I'm saying? And you make a lot of assertions and empty claims, but that's what you do.
I think I heard that about Leo tonight. But enough about our love affair. Do you have any more questions, John? Because I do have a few.
Yeah. And then so finally, here's a question for Leophillius from Icarus, and I think might be a tongue-in-cheek or ironic question. He says, "At Leophillius, what was before God?"
I don't know. When was God? Oh, that's right. He was no when.
Kevin Crady again. I believe that. It's a question for Skyout. He makes the argument: every lightning strike has a beginning, therefore Thor exists. Can
Wow.
let me finish the question.
Go ahead.
Therefore Thor exists. Can Skyout show how this logic is wrong without debunking his own view?
Yeah, that's like really easy. It's not properly basic. It's illogical and it's meaningless. You have to find something that fits proper basicality, that is rational, logical, and meaningful, that has epistemic warrant and epistemic qualification. Like if I said Spider-Man, Thor, voodoo cult blood magic, and people out in the world are practicing voodoo cult blood magic, and that's the same reasoning as believing in your God. I've heard it all before. It doesn't fit proper basicality of what is warranted, of what epistemic warrant and epistemic justification, and it's really just bad epistemic quality and bad epistemic framework. So,
all right, and this is a comment from Stephanie Trenton that I found very interesting and have a quick comment on. In the middle of it all, she posted, "I would like Leo a lot better if only he would be prepared to listen." I mean, to me, that is just like such a false comment. Like, Leo listened to Skyout. Skyout seemingly was not listening to Leo a lot. But yeah, I think Leo listened to Skyout, responded to his questions and comments. And I don't know where you're getting that Leo wasn't listening. But at any rate, and then let's see here. Where's this at?
I will be right back. I'm just going to run to the bathroom quick.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is... Oh, okay. From Kevin Crady again. All right. If God thinks, it must have had a first thought. Otherwise, there would be an infinite regress of thoughts. Prior to that, God could not have had a mind. How did God start?
Yeah, that's just empty posturing, and he's not articulating himself very well. It's just he's not demonstrating his claim. He's just arguing over a generic God and not the God of the Bible.
Well, for the rest of these questions, can we just assume that the response is empty posturing?
No, I don't want to assume that. No.
Oh, all right. Let's see here. Da-da-da. It's kind of hard when you take a screenshot of like 10 comments, then you got to find the one you took it from.
Mm. Do your thing, my man. It's all good.
Oh, and then I can't remember exactly when this came out, but it's so fitting that this question comes up right after what you just said. Apricot Sloth says, I believe quoting you or quoting Leo, whichever one of you said this to the other, do you know about these outdated science hypotheses? Oh, you do? So you're just empty posturing. So but that's not a phrase that people heard a lot out of you during the debate there. Let's see. Is this a question? No, I don't even know why I took that screenshot. Oh, no. Yeah, Icarus had asked at one point, will we get arguments for God at some point? I guess.
I mean, again, they don't understand the argument. I gave the argument for the beginning of the universe through science. I gave you different scientists for that. And I gave you the argument of properly basic beliefs. Like, I gave a great argument for that. And the whole point was to prove God exists, the beginning of the universe, the mind of God. And I think I proved that tonight.
Okay. Chris Myers wants to know, does Skyout own the copyright on the word subjective? He uses it a lot.
I mean, I don't know. I don't have an opinion on that, what he's talking about. I mean, I guess if I do use it, then obviously they need to stop using subjective claims.
I will give you credit. Here's credit where credit is due, Skyout. You did make one convert tonight. You converted an atheist to Christianity for your fine work tonight, because Dragnot Silvus came in and he commented, Jesus, this was painful. So,
Dragnot.
Yeah, no, he was praying to Jesus. So, you did some good tonight.
I mean, aside from the sarcasm, it's all good, my man. It's all good, my dude.
Yeah. All right, let's see here. And then this was a question, and if they had question marks on them, I screenshot them, whether they were questions of commentary or actual questions. Raging Atheist towards the end had posted, did we ever get any arguments for God, or was it just the universe exists?
Again, the universe did have a beginning, and nothing comes from nothing is nothing. So we need a mind in order to create something. So unless you're going to say nothing created the universe, and that's illogical and meaningless. So
if nothing comes from nothing, then it logically follows that a being could not create something out of nothing. Adding an efficient cause does nothing to somehow rescue the principle ex nihilo nihil fit. That applies to the concept of creatio ex nihilo, which is why creatio ex nihilo is an incoherent concept. It's violating the very principle that is invoked so that they can then invoke creatio ex nihilo.
All right, Ray, that's all the questions I had from the audience. So you can go ahead and read your questions, and after you get through those questions, I have a few questions of my own here.
All right, I do want to try to wrap it up. We are going to have a after show. I promised at least 2 hours. We'll see how long it goes. I'm going to have to get some sleep tonight at some point. I do have to work tomorrow, so I need some sleep. But I am going to do an after show. I'll set it up shortly, so we'll get through this. We just have a few more questions, ending with Titan Uranus. I believe was the last question I got. So, Tentaise asks for Skyout, with no actual demonstration of God, why does he keep making the stupid argument about needing gods to think or use reason?
Because I have to demonstrate my position against my position in order for it to be true. This is infallible belief and infallible justification. So if I say I'm a Christian and therefore I'm not a Hindu, therefore I'm not an atheist, I have to actually demonstrate my position and how Christianity is true against those models. Otherwise, if you don't argue against your position, you're not demonstrating your position. You have to negate it. You have to try to disprove.
Real quick, because he went on to finish, and I forgot I took this second screenshot. With no actual demonstration of God, or why does he keep making this stupid argument about needing gods to think or use reason? Where is it at? When we used math, reasoning, and thought thousands of years before the Christian mythology was ever written.
I don't know about that. He hasn't articulated well with whatever he's saying. It's
a pretty apparent. So he's asking, with no demonstration of God, why do you keep making the argument about needing gods to think or use reason? When we, as human beings, thought and used reasons for thousands of years before the concept of God or your particular God.
I never said that human beings didn't have reasoning. But I think the assertion that, before the existence of God or before the Christian mythology, that's just an empty claim. I mean, obviously we had reason before Christianity. Christianity is fairly a new religion. There's a lot of religions before Christianity. That's not really, Halloween is before Christianity. There's a lot of things before Christianity, but it doesn't make it reliable. And just because people have reasoning, it doesn't, it's just a subjective opinion. So I don't see the point.
Well, and for the record, when you make claims like you have no absolute standard, no moral grounding,
of course,
you did kind of make those claims. All right, so Ryan asks for you, Skyout, if Jesus was Jewish, and Jesus, who is God, is unchanging, doesn't that mean he is still Jewish?
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, he's Jewish.
So God is Jewish.
Jesus is Jewish. I wouldn't say God is Jewish.
Jesus is God.
Jesus is God.
He's the second person of God. He's also a man.
All right. Titan Uranus, final question of the night for you, Skyout. Can a Calvinist be...
Not really.
Oh, yeah. All right. Can a Calvinist be a non-cognitivist in the sense of their epistemological foundation is not based on universally accepted ideals of deterministic phenology?
That's a tough question. You're talking about Calvinistic epistemological frameworks and how the cognitive function of the brain and how one arrives at truth and reason in the Calvinistic perspective. That's a tough one.
Aren't most Calvinists Reformed epistemologists?
Yeah, they are. Just because... there's a lot of people that are Reformed epistemologists. They're not Calvinists, but yeah. So, but no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't even address this statement, or I wouldn't even address it. So,
I think that's been consistent. So,
I just wanted to say before we end, I know that some people.
I'm not going to end. I have a few more questions.
Have come up with the Dillahunty Dodge. I'm dubbing what I now call the Skyout slide.
Yeah.
Well, when they don't have a foundation,
I had to.
No, it's all good. It's if they don't have a foundation for truth, and then they're just creating these assertions and empty claims and empty posturing, and I'm just going to dismiss it. There's no reason to answer.
I'll tell you what. I'll bet you're really good at the limbo, man.
You childish, John. That's what you is. You a childish man. You are a man child.
Mentioning the limbo is childish.
Let's save the insults at least for the after show.
Yeah. Okay. So this is just a comment I want to make. You at one point had said intelligibility entails an intelligence.
Yes.
That's not really true. In the way you meant it, it's not really true because, like something in nature can be intelligible to a human being. And of course, they're an intelligence, but the thing that is intelligible to them doesn't necessarily have to have an intelligence. And then, all right. So many times after Leo explained something to you very well, I thought you made the claim, well, you really didn't articulate anything. Were you actively listening to what Leo was saying tonight?
Of course I was. I'm surprised he didn't bring up. He did talk about Ethan Siegel and a little bit of the Lambda CDM model for a minute. We did talk about the origins of the universe, and then we got into that, the Borg Blankham theorem. I thought that
So
was
you
good.
were listening to him. So is the problem that you don't know what the word articulate means?
No, I perfectly understand that. But what I'm saying is that we both have different worldviews. Of course, we're not going to be able to articulate what we're trying to say because we don't have the same foundations or presuppositions. So of course, we're going to kind of clash heads, and but that's not. I mean, that's not the case at this juncture in time. I think me and Leo had a great conversation. I was listening to him. We went back and forth. We both understood our points. I understood his. He understood mine. We were right there with it. We were right there with it with the universe. You know what I mean.
All right. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna stop you there. I'm sorry because Knock wants me to get through these real quick, and I will say I wholeheartedly believe that this will end up being one of the highlights of Leo's life. So you're right. It was very good in that respect. He'll be telling his grandchildren about this night. Now you many times made the comment throughout the course of the discussion that your claims about the Bible, your claims about the way you were trying to link the beginning of the universe to your belief in the existence of God, you made the statement that it was supported by modern cosmology, and I don't see you made that claim, but you never really fleshed it out. How is it supported by modern cosmology?
The beginning of the Big Bang is supported by modern cosmology. You can look this. The Big Bang is pretty consistent.
You're right. The Big Bang supported by modern cosmology, but that's not God.
That was my point. That's all I was saying. I was just saying that.
Just to go on record, I was not at any point denying the Big Bang, and nor would I. The lambda CDM model is essentially the hot Big Bang model with the addition of dark matter and dark energy, as well as a few other things.
Have you ever heard of universal wave function, Leophillius?
Yes, that's the Everettian model of quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
So, but my point was,
if you want, I actually have Sean Carroll's book, Something Deeply Hidden, which talks about that. So anybody interested on particularly that, read that book.
So, but Scott, my point was that you were claiming many times that your position about the existence of God was supported by modern cosmology. You weren't referring to the Big Bang. You were saying that the existence of God was supported by modern cosmology.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I believe that it is because we have several quotes from scientists. I can quote them right now. Let's see here. I have several scientists that talk about. Let's see. We have Frank.
Well, I'll tell you what. Bring those quotes to the after show, and we'll flesh that out some more.
I got them.
Well, and then this was just another quick comment. You had said Leo was explained something to you very well. And you said, well, we can just move on if you don't want to answer the question.
I thought we addressed it. I think we got to the point where like, okay, we've beaten the dead horse at one point. Or like, and I was like, okay, we can move on to a different area. We were still on that subject. I was just thinking, okay, we've completed this section of our conversation. Let's move on to philosophy. I think that's what I thought when I moved from the universe. I was like, all right, let's move to philosophy. That's what I thought of when I was moving to the universe to philosophy, just because I wanted to test it.
Right. There was that point, but there was another point where Leo gave you a very comprehensive answer to your question, and then you ended when he stopped. You said, "Well, we can just move on if you don't want to answer the question."
Okay. If I did came off that way, I probably just agreed with what he was saying, so I didn't disagree with it. Because if I would have said something if I would have disagreed, so I probably just would have been like, "Okay, I agree with you. We can just." I have nothing to say, so we could just move on to the next. You know what I mean?
Two real quick points, and then we'll give you guys a couple minutes to say your final words, and then Knock, I know, wants to get out of here. We can't start the second stream until he has time to do what I wish I could do, is go smoke a fucking bowl. I got like 15 months before I can do that. All right, so you talked about epistemic warrant, Skyout. Where was yours during this debate?
Epistemic, what do you mean, where was mine? Epistemic warrant just means that something that's reasonable, rational, and something that distinguishes something that's like irrational and ignorant and meaningless. Like saying that, oh, okay, if I said that I believe in Jesus because my cat told me or my dog told me, I would think there's something seriously wrong with you, right? That doesn't have any epistemic judgment or epistemic warrant. That's what I'm talking about by epistemic warrant. If I said I believe in Jesus because the Bible, science, and some sort of methodological approach, that does give me epistemic warrant and epistemic judgment. So it distinguishes between something that's ignorant, that's something that's irrational and meaningless, to something that is meaningful and direct and logical, so we can use this in reality. So reality is the main point here. Our cognitive abilities to aim at truth and function of the brain, the cognitive abilities of the brain. So, and one how perceives knowledge. And I could have went into that. I could have went to, how we make these observations of truth in our sensory apprehensions. I could have went into that, but I decided not to do that tonight.
Okay, and just one final question. Towards the end there, you made a statement that two things to prove a properly basic belief. So properly basic beliefs have to be justified?
It's not required, but they can have. Non-inferential beliefs can have, because God is foundational. He's non-inferential, but non-inferential beliefs can have justification. It's called infallible belief and infallible justification. That's why I brought up
properly basic beliefs.
Those are just two examples of how a properly basic belief comes to have epistemic warrant. An example, which is infallible belief and infallible justification, this is why I brought up the example of the reliability.
Properly basic beliefs have to have epistemic warrant?
Properly basic belief, no, an example of a properly basic belief, like you say, oh, what's your evidence for a properly basic belief, right? And my evidence would be infallible justification or infallible belief, like the reliability of your memory, for example. Like, in order for me to rely on my memory, I had to have to rely on my memory to be reliable. But in order for my memory not to be reliable, I would need my memory to be reliable in order to know that it's not reliable. That's what I mean about infallible belief and infallible justification.
I think that's the perfect note to end on. Rage, did you have anything you want to say before they take a minute and say their final words?
No, good debate. Good questions. I thought it was fairly. We didn't have to jump in at all. So yeah, good debate.
All right. So since Skyout got to go first every time tonight, we'll let Leo go first and just take 1 or 2 minutes to make any final comments you have, Leo.
Yeah. God probably does not exist. You should check out my channel if you want to know more. Also, a friend of mine has a really good channel, and we talk about the same thing, Answers in Atheism. You should subscribe to that channel as well.
Speed sound. So go ahead, Scout. Any final words?
Yeah. On my channel, I just have some like fun stuff like skating and like some Kung Fu IP Man stuff. You can go to my channel and check out some IP Man stuff. I love that stuff, Leah. It's fucking fun. There's also some other things on my channel, like the science of talking to women and how to approach women and stuff. I put a lot of fun things on my channel, so I'm putting the debates up there as well. So that's pretty much what's going on right now. I'm going to try to have open rooms maybe soon next week to have people come through and just whatever I want people to come through and tell me their arguments for the existence of God and tell me their arguments against the existence of God, so I can see where everyone's perspective is coming through. That's all. I appreciate coming out to the Rage and talking to Leo. I respect everyone. It was a fun debate. I believe, I proved the beginning of the universe, the existence of God through scientific principles. Again, we could do it again. If the audience wants us to do it again, we could do it again. But again, I had a great time.
Real quick though, just on that, and so you conflate those two things together. The beginning of the universe is simpatico with God, like they're not the same thing, but like you can't have one without the other. Is that?
I'm saying that, okay, as a Christian, there's got to be a mind to exist prior to the beginning of the universe. Otherwise, nothing can't come from something, right? So there's got to be a mind, and the Bible says
nothing can't come from something. What?
Okay.
All right. Anyway, I'm sorry. This is all after show shit.
All right.
Kick it over there to Knock. Let me kick it over there to Knock, and let's.
Yes. So yeah, I got this after show set up. It should start at around 11:30. Might be a few minutes late. Gonna take a quick break, and then yes, we'll start the after show up. I'm not gonna. I was gonna do the Patreon screen, but I'm just gonna get out of here. Nice debate. Thank you, Skyout, for coming in. And
For sure.
putting up with us and exchanging debate with Leo. Leo, thank you for being here. Thank you, audience. This was fun. I'd like to do this some more. Hopefully, we can get some more debates going on. And join us for the after show. It'll be an open room, first come, first serve. We can have up to 10 spots filled. I think Otangelo said he might come, maybe, and Skyout, if you have some time, come in. I promised at least 2 hours, so I will do what I can to make it 2 hours, at least. Join us then, and thanks for participating in the side chat and being a part of this debate. Let me actually, I'm thinking I've been doing